PPTஸில் இன்னைக்கு என்ன டாக்குமெண்டேஷன் blockchain using Python platform tools in the presentation. சார் அந்த ப்ரெசன்டேஷன் ஒன்று இது பண்ணியிருந்தீங்கல்ல, அந்த ஸ்லைடில் வைக்கணும் எண்ட் பாயிண்ட்டு சொல்லியிருந்தீங்கல்ல, அது வந்து நான் டவுன்லோட் பண்ணேன். அது எங்கே வச்சேன்னு தெரில. இப்போ வாட்ஸ்அப் வந்து என் ஃபோன் வந்து வீட்டில் இன்டர்நெட் கனெக்ட் பண்ண முடியல. எனக்கு அது இன்னொரு வாட்டி என் மெயிலுக்கு சென்ட் பண்ணுறீங்களா அந்த ப்ரெசன்டேஷன்? சரி, நாளையிலேருந்து பண்ணவா? நான் ஆக்சுவலாக டவுன்லோட் பண்ணேன் ஆஃபீஸில், ஏதோ ஒரு ஃபோல்டரில் போட்டேன். அது எந்த ஃபோல்டர்னு இப்போ பார்த்தா எனக்கு தெரில. இப்போ வந்து வாட்ஸ்அப் வந்து என் ஃபோனில் நாளையிலேருந்து இது பண்ணுறேன். எனக்கு நாளைக்கு நான் வந்துட்டு ஃபோனை இது பண்ணிவிட்டு நான் டவுன்லோட் பண்ணி நாளையிலேருந்து அந்த எண்ட் ஸ்லைட் வச்சிடுறேன் அந்தந்த பாயிண்டில். ஓகே சார், தேங்க்யூ சார். Good evening everyone. So I am just going to discuss with you about the blockchain technology and what are all the different components that are involved in blockchain. Everything I am going to discuss with you. First of all, what we discussed yesterday, everything is clear to you. Whatever we discussed with you, I discussed with you yesterday, everything is clear to you. Today's topics, yes, I am going to tell you about what history of blockchain and what is a Bitcoin and what do you mean by SHA-256 algorithm. Slowly I will be diving into the concepts, that is what is a client class. If possible, I will show you one small demo today. So all this is going to be our agenda today, Mahmood. So just I want a recap of what we have seen yesterday. I just want a recap of what we have seen yesterday. One minute, I am starting my Jupyter. I will start in a minute. Yesterday I discussed with you about what are all the main components involved in a blockchain. Basically there are three main components involved in a blockchain. First we have a client. So these are all the three main components involved in the blockchain. We have a client, we have a miner, and we have a blockchain. So what do you mean by a client? So what is the use of blockchain? Yesterday I was discussing with you what is the use of blockchain. So whatever the transactions that are being carried out, for example in e-commerce industry or in whichever industry, so what are all the various transactions that are being carried out, everything is stored in the form of blocks. So this concept is called as blockchain. So in client, so whoever who buys goods from others, so they accept money from others and that they transact goods, those people they are called as clients. And second one, miner. So who is a miner? So they are going to verify the Bitcoin transactions. So they are going to add data to the public ledger. They are whatever transactions that are happening, they add transaction data to the public ledger of past transactions. So all this is nothing but the mining process. They are used to securely carry out the Bitcoin transactions and they verify. And what do you mean by a blockchain? As I told you, whatever the transactions that are happening, everything is stored in the form of blocks. So blockchain, what do you understand by the term blockchain? So whatever the transactions that are happening, every day who is purchasing, so at what time they are purchasing, the timestamp, and what are all the different goods that they are purchasing, whatever transactions that are happening, everything is stored securely in the form of a block. So whatever transactions, they are being added to the blocks as a continuous list of records, that is a sequence of records, chain of records. So they are linked in some sequential order. They are protected using cryptographic techniques. So why we involve cryptographic techniques? In order to securely store the data, we use various cryptographic techniques, and using those cryptographic techniques, everything is stored in a secured way. 1 minute, just a minute. 1 minute, just a minute. So everything is stored in the form of blocks. So what do you mean by a blockchain? So whatever transactions that are being done, everything is stored in the form of blocks. They are sequentially linked in some order, and all the transactions that are stored in blocks, they are protected using strong cryptographic techniques. So this concept is called as a blockchain. So whatever transactions that are being carried out, everything is stored in the form of blocks and they are linked together. So what do you mean by chaining? So all the transactions that are being carried out, they are stored in blocks and they are connected together in the sequential fashion. That is, they are chained together. So in a sequence, so everything is stored in a sequence. Transactions, they are protected by using cryptographic techniques. So what is the use of cryptographic techniques? In order to securely store the transaction, various cryptographic techniques are used. So using those protocols and techniques, so all the transactions, they are stored securely in blocks. So this concept is called as blockchain. So in a blockchain, what are all the three major components that are involved? We have a client, we have a miner, and we have a blockchain. So all these three are the major components that are involved in blockchain. Next I am going to discuss with you about the history of blockchain. So who developed this technology? Blockchain, it was developed by Stuart Heber and Scott Stornetta. It was described in the year 1991. What is the use of blockchain? So they provide some practical solution in order to whatever transactions that are carried out, it is being stored in a digital format, and we apply time stamping. So at what time the transaction is being carried out, on which date the transaction is being carried out, and who are all the person who was transacting and what are all the goods they are transacting, everything is stored in the digital format. So this concept is called as blockchain, and cryptographically they are protected. That is, various cryptographic algorithms are employed in order to securely store the information in blocks. So Merkle trees was introduced. This is one concept. So various documents that is related to the transactions, everything is collected into one block. So whatever transactions that are happening, all the things are collected into one block. So the trees, they are used to create a secure chain of blocks. So this is called as a Merkle tree. So what are all the transactions that are happening? Several documents, they are collected into one block. So the trees, they are used to create a secure chain of blocks. So they contain a series of data records, and each record is connected to one another, one before it. So it contains the newest record, it contains the history of the entire chain. So what do you mean by blockchain? So as I told you, whatever transactions that are happening, so it is stored in some sequential fashion. They are linked in the form of blocks and they are chained together, connected together. So it is connected in some sequential order such that we get meaning out of it, meaningful information, insight out of a blockchain. So Merkle trees concept was introduced. So what is the use of Merkle trees? So they are used to collect several documents into one block. So that is this concept was called as Merkle trees. So why blockchain is more efficient? They are used to collect several documents into one block. So they are used to create a secure chain of blocks. That is, various cryptographic techniques are employed in order to store the transactions in a secured way. So it is connected to the previous block. Each newest record, it is connected to the one before it. So the newest record in the chain, it contains the entire, that is the history of the entire chain. So this is how diagrammatically, so you can see how a blockchain looks like. So this is the topmost hash 0 and then hash 1. So you can see what are all the different hash values I am having. So what is the use of hashing function? So in order to cryptographically store the data, that is for encryption, we are using a hashing function. So whatever transactions that are happening, everything is stored in the form of blocks and they are protected cryptographically by employing various hash functions. So this is hash 0, this is hash 1. So hash 0 0, hash 0 1, 1 0 and 1 1. So these are all the different hash blocks that are available. Data blocks, we have 4 blocks and every block has a unique hash function. So using hash function, the data is stored securely, cryptographically protected using various cryptographic techniques. And we have one more concept called proof of work. So I will be discussing with this elaborately in my later slides. So just to know what do you mean by a proof of work. So whatever transactions that are happening, they should be verified. So whether the transaction was done correctly, so without any errors. So cryptographically we have to protect all the data that is stored in blocks. So in order to verify the correctness, and we have to verify the integrity. So whether all the records hold tightly. For that we are using a concept called proof of work. So what do you mean by proof of work? So whatever work, whatever transaction that is being carried out in a blockchain, we have to, that is protect, that we need to have a proof, we need to verify that the transaction has been carried out securely. For that we are having a proof of work. So as I told you, whatever transactions that are happening, it is stored in blocks, and as new transaction comes in, the transaction is being carried out and they are being connected to each other in the form of a chain. So the blocks are getting added to the previous block in such a way, so it is going to make a meaningful chain, that is blockchain. So the concept is called as blockchain. So today many digital currencies are growing, cryptocurrencies. Bitcoin is a popular cryptocurrencies. So blockchain, it is the basic building block of Bitcoin. So cryptocurrencies. So whatever transactions that are happening, they are stored digitally in the form of a ledger. In some public ledger, they are being stored physically, that is digitally they are stored in a public ledger. So that all the transactions, they are being securely stored in a ledger. So for that we are using, so in order to securely store all the transactions, so, and they are protected using various cryptographic techniques. For that we are using a concept called blockchain. So it is the basic building block behind the digital currencies, that is the digital currencies, Bitcoin. So whatever transactions that are happening, how we are storing, so this is the basic building block behind all the transactions that are happening. So the size of cryptocurrency, so many transactions, as I told you, right from e-commerce industry, so many other industries, in banking sectors, many transactions are happening. So many people, they are trying to make many transactions. So whatever transactions customer, whenever they create new account, whenever they withdraw some money, and whatever transactions that are being carried out, as the volume of data is going to increase, so everything is stored digitally in the form of blocks, and they are protected using various cryptographic techniques. What is the use of all these cryptographic techniques? In order to securely store the data, so that the data can't be stolen by someone, and not any frauds that are happening can be prevented by employing cryptographic techniques. Next, I am going to discuss with you about Bitcoin. So what do you mean by Bitcoin? So as I told you, it is nothing but a digital currency, that is a cryptocurrency. So whatever transactions that are being carried out, we are having everything is carried out by using digital currency. So this type of currency, it is called as a Bitcoin. So whatever people are buying, they are selling goods, and whatever transactions that are happening, everything is stored digitally. So for that we use a digital currency called Bitcoin. So they are protected using various cryptographic techniques such that the records are stored in a secured way. So nobody can steal the money or create any fraudulent transactions, and they follow a decentralized architecture. So what do you mean by decentralized architecture? In case of banks, we have a manager, we have a admin person. So there is a central person, central authority, who is going to be the controller of all the transactions that are being happening. So instead of a single controller, we can have a decentralized, that is distributed architecture. So instead of a single controller, it is being decentralized. So we are not having a one single authority, it is decentralized. So this is what, so Bitcoin, it follows a decentralized architecture. So whatever payments we are making and whatever values we are storing electronically, so everything is stored in a digital format. So Bitcoin, it is a digital currency similar to whatever other currencies we have all over the world. We have different types of currencies like dollar, pound, euro. These are all some of the digital currencies. Traditionally we use these currencies, and Bitcoin, it is one form of digital currency, digital cash, digital asset or digital currency. So whatever values it's being stored, we are exchanging electronically, so digitally. And blockchain, how that is protected, how the transactions are being stored. So as I told you, blockchain, it is the building block behind the Bitcoins. In Bitcoins, so it is a digital currency. So whatever transactions are carried out, so how the internally the basic building block is the blockchain. As I told you, the transactions are stored in the form of blocks. So what is the name of the person who is transacting something? So how much he is transacting, what is the amount being transacted, what is the goods he is buying, everything is stored digitally in the form of blocks. So this concept is called as Bitcoin and blockchain. So instead of physical bills, so whatever transactions we are buying something, for example in an online store, when we buy some clothing, some electronic goods, some mobiles, some laptops, whatever we buy, so everything is carried out using digital cash. So a digital currency, instead of paying paper bills, so we have digital currency, and this is called as Bitcoin. Next I am going to discuss with you about how the Bitcoins work. So whenever we send some message, say a text message or an email, so we provide the email address, and when you tap the send button, so it will be sent to the corresponding person. So what type of communication it is happening? The type of communication that is happening, how the information is sent from one person to another, it is called as a peer-to-peer communication. So based on peer-to-peer, that is known as peer-to-peer communication. If we want to transfer some money over internet, so online we want to transfer some money, so we use the help of a service of a third party like banks, credit card or other money transfer services. So all these services, we use third party services in order to transfer money securely over the internet. So why we are going for this kind of third party? So we have to transfer the money. So through what means we are going to transfer? So for that we employ the service. We get the help of some third parties like banks, credit card or other money transfer services. For example, if you want to send a photo, if you want to send a small video clip, just you attach and you click the send button, it will be sent to another person. So how Bitcoin works? So as I told you, we have two copies of photo. For example, we have a sender and we have a receiver. So whenever one person is going to send some photo or he is going to send a small picture, small video clip or something, So he will tap the send button and it will be transferred to another person. Say for example we have two copies of the same photo. So one is the original and one more, so it is still in the computer. One is the original photo, original mail which I have to send, and one more file, it is still on my computer. So we are actually sending the copy of the file, not the original file. So this issue is called as the double spend problem. So what do you mean by double spending problem? For example, I am buying something. Say for example, for 5 rupees I am buying something. For 20 rupees I am buying something online, and I can use the same 20 rupees to buy another which can be involved in some new transaction. That is, I can, with the same money I am going to buy a different thing. That is, I am going to use the same currency twice. So this issue is called as a double spend problem. That is, we have two copies. So here I have taken the example of a photo. So in case of currency, what is happening? So as I told you, with 20 rupees I am buying something. Say I am buying some small piece of some grocery or something like that. I can use the same money and I can spend that money somewhere. So this issue is called as double spend problem. That is, I am using the same money. That is a copy of the money, same money. So this issue happens in digital currency. In case of normal currency, paper currency, this issue doesn't happen. This issue mainly happens in digital currency. So this type of problem, what it is called? It is called as a double spending problem. So the same money is sent twice. That is, it is being used twice, spent twice. This issue is called as a double spending problem. So as I told you, I have taken the example of a photo. So I have a original photo. So I can send a copy of the same photo to someone. So this issue is called as a double spending problem. So how Bitcoin works? So I have to address this double spending problem. So whether the transaction is real or not, whether the transaction has happened, so whether the transaction actually took place or not. So how Bitcoin works? So without any central authority, as I told you, there is no central controller. There is not a single controlling person. It follows a decentralized architecture. That is a distributed architecture. So whether the transaction took place or not. For example, we have many computers that are being connected. So we have a decentralized technology and it is called as a blockchain. So how we are going to address this? So through blockchains. So whatever transactions that are happening, so I am not having, in case of a bank or some other authority is not available in order to certify that a transaction has took place. Instead, I am using a technology called blockchain technology. So as I told you, blockchain, it is the major building block behind the Bitcoin. So how this digital currency works? It works based on blockchain. So whatever transactions that are happening, so it is being captured securely and it is protected using various cryptographic techniques, and it is stored and it is verified across a network of computers. We are not having a centralized architecture. That is, there is no single central authority who is going to control. Instead, the data is distributed across a network of computers. So this concept is called as decentralized architecture. That is, we are not having a single centralized authority. Instead, it is distributed across a network of computers, a pool of computers. So the data is stored, it is protected cryptographically by employing various cryptographic techniques, and the transaction, it is being carried out, whatever transactions that are happening, it is stored in the blocks and it is protected using various cryptographic techniques, and it is stored in a network of architecture. That is a network of computers. So this is called as blockchain. So this is how Bitcoin works. Whatever transactions that are happening, so everything is stored digitally. So on which date the transaction is happening, who are all the person who are involved in the transaction, at what time the transaction is happening, how much money they are spending. So everything, it is being digitally recorded. As I told you, Bitcoin, it is a digital currency. So everything is stored digitally in the form of blocks and it is stored in a blockchain. It uses a decentralized architecture. That is decentralized network of computers. Whenever a transaction happens, we have to verify that the transaction is correct. We have to confirm and we have to record each transaction so that it can be used for future reference. So on some other date, I want to view the transaction, so it can be used for future reference. We need to verify that the transaction is correct. So all these things, it is being carried out in a blockchain, and it is stored in a decentralized network of computers. So whenever we can't have any single point of failure, so it is stored in a decentralized manner. So if something wrong happens, so we are not going to address in case of centralized architecture. If something goes wrong in the transaction, only a single person, a single controller, a single authority is responsible for this. In case of decentralized architecture, it is stored in a distributed way. That is, it is stored in a network of computers. So when something goes wrong, so we are not a single computer is not answerable, a single authority is not answerable. So the data, whatever transactions that are being carried out, whatever data is stored in the blockchain, it is stored in a more secure way. So in this way, in case of, compared to centralized architecture, in case of decentralized architecture, the data is stored in a more secure way and they are less prone to frauds. So no fraudulent transaction can happen. So in case of centralized location, many frauds can happen because there is a single person who is going to control the transaction. Whereas in case of decentralized architecture, so everything is stored across a network of computers. So it is less prone to frauds. So no frauds can happen. So with this I am done. So what do you mean by Bitcoin and what do you mean by a blockchain? So all these are important concepts in blockchain. So whatever transactions that are happening, so everything we are using, instead of paper currency, we are employing a digital currency called Bitcoin. And what is the use of Bitcoin? So whenever whatever transactions are happening, so everything is stored in the form of blocks. We are employing hash functions and they are being protected cryptographically by employing hashing techniques, and everything is stored in the form of blocks and chained together. That is, this concept is called as blockchain, and it is the basic building block behind that is Bitcoin, that is the digital currency. Next I am going to discuss with you about the Bitcoin miners. So what do you mean by mining? Whenever whatever transactions that are happening, I need to add everything to a transaction, that is the blocks. They are being added in the form of blocks. So I have to add the transactions record to the public ledger. So there will be a public ledger. So whatever transactions that are happening, I have to add the transaction records. So past transactions, whatever transactions are happening, so I need to append the new transactions. So this concept is called as mining. So what do you mean by Bitcoin mining? So millions of transactions are happening. So today many people, they are buying online goods. So many transactions are happening. Many online stores, e-commerce stores are developing. Many online shops, many online websites, online portals, banking shops, banking applications. So many applications are being developed. So a lot of data is being generated. So I need to keep track of all the past data. So for that I am maintaining a ledger. So the data is being past transactions, it is stored in the form of blocks. So this concept, the process of adding transaction records to the ledger, is called as mining. So what is the use of Bitcoin mining? So miners, they are nothing but who will verify and securely store the data. They are going to add the data. They are called as miners. So what do you mean by mining? The process of adding more transaction records to the public ledger. What are past transactions? So all the transactions, historically, what are all the transactions that are happening? It is being stored securely in a ledger. To that we are adding all the new transactions. So that it is going to be follow a sequential structure, that is a chain of blocks. This concept is called as blockchain. And what is the use of Bitcoin mining? So all the transactions we are going to secure and verify the transactions. So to the rest of the network. So what is the use of mining? So whatever transactions that are happening, we need to verify that the transaction is carried out correctly, and we need to store them in a secure way. So this concept is called as Bitcoin mining, and what it is doing, it is used for adding transactions to the block. Previous records, it is used for adding the transactions. So the people who are adding the transactions, those group of people, they are called as miners. So whatever transactions, so what is the role of a miner? So what a miner is going to do? So he need to confirm the transaction. So whatever transactions that are happening, he need to confirm the transactions, that the transaction has been carried out correctly. He need to verify the transaction, and he need to store all the transactions. So for that we are employing a miner. So using cryptographic techniques, so what are all the transactions that are happening, everything is protected cryptographically and they are being stored in an encoded form. So nobody can steal the data, tamper the data. As I told you, the miners, so they are a very important component in a blockchain, that is Bitcoin or blockchain concept. So these are all the three main components. So miner, he is a very important component because he is the person who is going to add all the blocks to the previous past transactions. So he is a very important person. Bitcoin, so as I told you, Bitcoin is created for rewarding these miners. So as they create transactions and they are going to keep on adding, so they will be rewarded. So for that we are employing a digital currency called Bitcoin. So how is Bitcoin blockchain built? So how the Bitcoins are being built? The role of miner, what he is going to do, so he is going to add the transactions to the past transactions, and it is being stored, it is protected by employing various cryptographic techniques, and they are stored in a public ledger. So whenever a new block is added, a Bitcoin transaction, a new Bitcoin transaction, it is going to take place. And miners, they are the people who are going to add different transactions. So they build the block, and whenever a block is confirmed and verified, it will be added to the blockchain. So what is the use of blockchain? It provides a permanent record. So what are all the transactions that are happening? So they keep a record. So it is like a ledger, it is like a record. So what are all the transactions that are happened from the beginning? They keep a record of all the transactions, and this is called as a Bitcoin blockchain. So Bitcoin, as I told you, it is a digital currency. So whenever a miner is going to add something, add some transaction to the block, they are rewarded by employing Bitcoin, that is a digital currency. And what do you mean by blockchain? So it is the basic building block behind Bitcoin. So how the transaction is happening, how the digital currency works based on blockchain. It is the building block. So whatever transactions are happening, the miners, they keep on adding the transactions and they build the block, and once it is verified, it is being added by the miner. So in this way we are creating a blockchain. So they keep a record, they keep a permanent record of all the transactions from the beginning. So this is how a blockchain is being built. You can see here we have a set of blocks. So we have some 5 blocks here. So it is being chained together. How it is being built? So this is the first transaction, say, and when someone new comes in, so he is going to purchase something, there is a second transaction, and what are all the transactions that are happening? Everything is stored, everything is connected together, linked together in the form of chain. That is called as, this is how we are employing a Bitcoin. So what are all the transactions that are happening? Everything is stored in the form of blocks and they are being chained together. And this whole set, this is called as a Bitcoin. That is a digital currency. So what are all the transactions that are happening? So we are storing in the form of blocks and they are linked together in the form of chains. And how the Bitcoin is built? So how the process, how it is being chained, and we are giving a whole bunch like this. So this is called as a, this whole unit, it is called as a Bitcoin. So this is how we are building a Bitcoin. Next I am going to discuss with you about the hash function. So what do you mean by hash function? So it takes some input string, so it can be a number, alphabets, and then it transforms into a fixed length sequence. So it is going to take in some input numbers, say alphabets or something. It can be a 64-bit, 32-bit or something, and then a hash function is applied and it is converted to a fixed length output. So the fixed length output, it is called as a hash. It is a cryptographic byproduct of a hash algorithm. So based on cryptography, the hash function works. So it takes an input string, so it can be a number, alphabet or some other files. It can be of any length and it converts into a fixed length sequence. So the process hash function, how it is converting a input string, varied length string into a fixed length sequence. So various cryptographic techniques are employed and it is converted. For that we are employing various hashing algorithm. So whatever input it takes in, so whatever transactions that are happening, so it can be a combination of numbers, alphabets and other files. So it can be of any length and it transforms into a fixed length sequence. So it is going to take in some input string. It can be varied, that is the length can vary, and it is converted into a fixed length sequence. So it is protected by employing various cryptographic techniques. So this is one simple example. I am taking a message. So I am employing some hash function. So using hashing techniques, so the string, so whatever message it comes in, so I am employing a hash function. So it is being carried out into a fixed length sequence. The variable length string, So I am taking this message, I am employing some hash function, and it is converted into a fixed length sequence. The variable length sequence, the message I am taking. So after employing hash functions, so it is protected cryptographically and it is converted into a fixed length sequence. So it has some unique properties. So every hash algorithm, it has some unique properties. So it takes a variable length sequence and it produces a unique output, some fixed output or a hash. So it is a one-way function. So in case of digital currencies like Bitcoin, so it uses this cryptographic techniques, hash functions. So in order, they will be coming into a central agreement, and based on that the hash function works. So certain amount of data they are going to take, and they are employing various cryptographic hash functions, and then it goes through the hashing algorithm and it gives a fixed length output. This concept is called as hash function. So what does hash function do? So it takes in a input of variable length string. So various hashing algorithms are employed and it gives a fixed length sequence. So this is called as hashing function. As I told you pictorially how it looks like, I am taking an input message. So I am employing a hash function. So various hashing functions. So in order to convert a variable length string into a fixed length sequence, I am employing some hash functions and it converts into a fixed length sequence. It is being displayed at the output. So blockchain hash function. So this is the use of a hashing function. So the transactions, it takes varied length strings, various hashing functions are employed and it gives a fixed size output. So various hashing algorithms are employed in order to get a fixed length output. So blockchain, it uses an algorithm. What is the hash algorithm it uses? Secured hash algorithm, SHA 256. So it uses an algorithm called secured hash algorithm. So who developed this algorithm? It was developed by the National Security Agency in USA. SHA 256, it is a hashing algorithm that is being used, and who developed this algorithm? It was developed by the National Security Agency in USA. So they have developed this algorithm. So how does the hashing process works? So I am going to take in some input data. So some varied length string. So this is how it looks like. So hashing function, so hashed data. So after applying the algorithm, that is secured hashing technique, after applying the hashing function, so this is how my hashed data looks like. So it is protected cryptographically and it is converted into a fixed length sequence. The variable length string, it is being converted into a fixed length sequence by employing various hashing techniques. So how the hashing process works? So it will generate the data like this, corresponding hash. So whenever we type in some input data, so it is of varied length. So we will find the corresponding hash in the hash function. So varied length string, varied data it has. So we have the fixed length sequence and it is specified in the hash. So this is how it looks like. For example, I am giving a text like this. So it is stored in the data panel. So this text, so I am employing hashing function. So hash, and then it is converted into a hash data like this. That is a varied length string. It is converted into a fixed length sequence. So how does the hashing process works? So I can change the text. So first I am giving, this is a tutorial. So instead of capital T, I can change it to small t. So when I am going to change this, it will generate the corresponding hash like this. So only the first character is changed, but I can see the entire hash value is being changed. So in this I am changing only the first character. For example, from capital T I am changing to small t. Whereas in the second case, if I change even a single character, it is going to change the entire hash. So how does it work? Whenever I write the same text in the data section, it will give the same output. Whenever I am going to change the data, even a single letter I am going to change, so the entire hash, it is going to change. So we can encrypt something, and then by using decryption, we can decrypt to the original form. So it works, the hashing process, it works based on encryption and decryption. So what do you mean by encryption? So we are converting the strings into some uncorrigible form, unreadable form, encoding, that is called as encryption. So hashing, using hashing function, so we are converting the input data into some hashed form, that is fixed length sequence. So we are employing some encryption techniques using the key, and when I want to read the original message, I have to use the key, I have to decrypt, and then I have to read the original message. So for that we are employing an algorithm called SHA-256. So what is the algorithm used for hashing? SHA-256, that is secured hash algorithm. So miners, who are all the miners? The people who are adding the transactions to the blocks. So process of building blocks. So they are those group of people, they are called as miners. So whenever we have a blockchain, so a block, it consists of a block number. So it has a block number, it has a data field. So in that it contains the input data and cryptographic hash. So using that hash function, so it is being converted to a hash, that is a fixed length sequence. The variable length string, it is being converted into a fixed length sequence. And n1s, that is number that can be used only once. So it denotes the restrictions that can be placed on a difficulty level. So a blockchain, whenever a block is being created, it consists of all these fields. It consists of a block number. So what is the number on which the transaction? It consists of a block number. It contains a data field. Whatever input data, variable length sequence it comes in, it contains a data field. It contains a hashing function, cryptographic hash. So using that, we are converting the variable length string into a fixed length sequence. So it has a block number and n1s, number that can be used only once, and data and hash. So all these are all the various modules, that is the various components that are present in a single block. So every block, so whatever transactions that are happening, so how I am hashing, so it contains a block number. So this is my first block, this is my second block, this is my third block. So whatever transactions that are happening sequentially, it contains a block number and it contains n1s, number that can be used only once. It denotes the restrictions that is being placed on the difficulty level, and data, whatever input data I am having, it is a varied length string, and then the hashing function, the corresponding output, that is the hashing function. So the data, it is being converted into a hashed form. So how does the hashing happens? So whenever a hash is being generated, it will look like this. So this is how my hash looks like this. So it has a 4 leading zeros. In the beginning it contains 4 zeros. So it denotes whether a block is valid or not. So for that we have 4 zeros. So hash, so this is how a hash looks like based on the input data. So my hash looks like this. So if it contains 4 zeros, it is a valid block. Otherwise it is not a valid block. So if I am going to change any data, it is going to give me a complete hash. As I told you, even if I change a single character, my entire hash value, it is being changed here. So previously you can see 72, so I am not having any input data, it is having 4 zeros, it is a valid hash. So I am changing the data here, how my hash function changes. So even if I change a single character, my entire hash value, it is being changed. So then I am going to discuss with you about miners. So who is a miner? So whatever transactions that are happening, he is picking up the transaction from the pool and they group them into a block. So each and every transaction, so every day lots of transactions are being happening. So they are going to pick up each and every transaction and they are going to group them into a block. So the person who is going to pick up the transaction and they are grouping into a block, these people, they are called as miners. So they need to provide the proof of work. So in order to get the reward. So what do you mean by proof of work? Whenever a transaction is happening, he need to verify that the transaction is correct and he need to verify, that is confirm that the transaction has happened. Only then he will be getting a reward. So for the work he has done, he will be getting a reward. So whenever he is going to buy some goods or services from other vendors, so he need to get rewards. So the people who are going to add blocks to the blockchain, so those people, they are called as miners. And as I told you, what do you mean by a blockchain? So it is nothing but a data structure. So whatever transactions that are happening, how they are being connected in a sequential order in the form of chain, such that the data can't be altered. That is immutable. What do you mean by immutable? Immutability. So the data stored in a blockchain, it cannot be changed and it cannot be hacked by anyone. Since they are protected by employing various cryptographic techniques, they cannot be tampered or they cannot be changed. The value inside the data inside the chain, it cannot be changed. So this is what is called as a blockchain. So they are whatever transactions that are happening, Each transaction, it is having a block number. They are being stored in a sequential manner in the form of chains. So this concept is, they are being stored in some sequential or chronological order. So in the correct order, they are being chained and they are being mined. This concept is called as blockchain. Next I am going to discuss with you. So these are all the main concepts involved in blockchain. Next I am going to discuss with you how to develop a client class. So far everything is clear. I hope whatever I am discussing, everything is clear to everyone. Everything is clear. Alright. So next, these are all the major concepts that are involved in blockchain. So what do you mean by a blockchain? What is a Bitcoin? And how you are going to add blocks and how it is hashed by employing hashing algorithm and hashing functions. Next I am going to discuss with you about clients. So as I told you, it has various blocks, various components are involved. So it has a client class, it has a miner and it has a blockchain. Firstly, I am going to discuss with you how to create a client. So what do you mean by client? So from the term, what it indicates. So whatever transactions that are happening, so he is the person who is going to, buy, that is whatever things he is buying. So he is going to get the currency. Using the currency, he is going to buy some goods and he is going to get some service from the vendors on the network. So this concept is called as blockchain, that is a client. What is the role of a client? So a client, so whenever a person is going to buy something and he is going to get some service from the vendors on the network. So some vendors, they are going to provide some service for the, for the whatever transactions, that is goods he is buying. So that is when he spends some money, he is going to receive some service from the vendors on the network. So the person who is going to spend money and who is going to perform some transaction, these people, they are called as clients. So they are going to buy some goods. So as I told you, in an e-commerce industry, so people, they are going to buy some things and they are going to purchase something and they are going to, in return, they are going to get the service from the vendors. So they are going to transact goods. When they buy, so the vendors will provide the product, required product. So the client is nothing but who holds the currencies and he is going to get some goods. So we have a client class. So whenever we have a blockchain, so as I told you, so there is going to be a client. So we should have a customer, that is a user who is going to buy something. So a client is going to have a public key. So as I told you, everything is stored. The transactions, whatever it is happening, it is cryptographically protected by using various hashing functions, various encryption techniques. So there is a public key. Whenever he is going to spend some money to some person, so he is going to spend some money, he is going to buy some goods, and then in turn he is going to receive some service from a third party. So whenever he is spending money, he is going to create a transaction. So in the transaction, so he specifies the name, who is going to spend the money and how much amount. So he is going to buy something and amount paid. So everything is specified in the transaction. That is a client class. So what he is going to buy? So it contains the client name, the sender's name. So whichever person he is going to buy something, it will contain the name and amount. So what is the amount purchased? And it is going to contain a timestamp, that is the date on which he is going to purchase something. So all this will be stored in the form of blocks. So what is the role of a client? So whenever I am going to create a concept called blockchain, there should be a class called client class. So what is the role of a client? So as I told you, what a client is going to do, so he is going to buy something. So he is going to buy something. So he will pay money. Definitely he will pay money, and in turn he is going to accept something from a third party. He is going to get some service for the money he is paying. So this concept is called as, that is, this is the role of a client, and what are all the transactions that are happening, they are stored securely in the form of blocks. How I am going to develop a client class? So what are all the different things it is going to contain? So whenever a client is going to buy something, so it should contain his name. So in order to identify the clients, there should be a name. So whenever I am going to spend some money, definitely a client should have a name, and then he should spend some money. So how much money he is going to pay in order to buy something? So he is going to pay some money, and when he is going to pay some money, what is the transaction, what is the service he is going to receive for the money he is going to pay? So all this will be contained in the client class. So the balance, in order to make sure, so he needs to have sufficient amount, sufficient balance in order to carry out the transaction. So all this will be contained in a client class. So what is the basic idea of a client class? So what are all the actions a client is going to perform? So what is the role of a client? So whenever a client comes in, he needs to provide his name and he needs to provide his identity. So who is going to send the money? So what is the name of the person and how much payment, how much amount he is going to transact. Everything is going to be contained in the client class. So I am going to show you one simple example how I am going to create a client class. So how I am going to employ Python and how I am going to create a client class. So first, how I am going to create a client class. So what is the first step here? In any case, so what are all the required libraries? In order to create a client class, I need to import all the libraries. First, I am importing hashlib. So what is the use of hashlib? So for converting the variable length string into a fixed length sequence, so whatever input data comes in, the name or some other thing, so it is converted by using a hash function. For that I need a library called hashlib. There is a package, there is a library called hashlib, and then random. So in order to create randomly, so in order to create a new client or something, new random number, I need this module, this package or this library. It is called as a random, and then string. So whatever data string functions I want to use, I am importing this library. And JSON. What do you mean by JSON? JavaScript object notation. I am going to store everything in the form of key value, name value pairs, key value pairs. I need a JSON is a dictionary. So whatever transactions that are being carried out, it's going to be, I am going to store in the form of a JSON form, JSON object. I am going to store as a JSON object, that is JavaScript object notation. And binary ASCII. So if I want to convert the ASCII form into a binary form, so I need this required library, that is binary ASCII. And Numpy, what is the use of Numpy? Numerical Python. For doing any kind of mathematical operations, I require Numpy. And Pandas, what is the use of Pandas? For doing any kind of data manipulation operation, I require Pandas. And Pyplot, it is a procedural interface. And logging. So these are all the various libraries I require. Logging and date time. So in order to create a timestamp of whatever I am storing, I need a date time and collections. So what is the use of collections? So logging. So whatever transactions are happening, I am going to create a log history of all the events. And collections. So in order to store the data collectively in a collective fashion, I require this library. So what is the first step in order to create a client class? The first step here is that, so what are all the important libraries? I need to import all those libraries. So these are all the essential libraries in creating a client class. So whenever I am going to create a client class, so what are all the important elements that will be present in a client? So every client identity, so he needs to have a name. So the person who is going to buy something, so definitely the person will be having a name. And how much amount, what is the total amount he is going to buy, purchase, what is the total amount he is going to purchase, so the amount, and then timestamp, so on which time the transaction is being carried out. So all this will be contained in a client class. So I require all this library. So whatever data comes in, so what is the use of hashlib library? In order to convert, that is hash function, various hashing functions will be applied in order to convert the variable length string into a fixed length sequence, character sequence. For that I need a library called hashlib. And random. So for random number generation, for all those things, I require this library. And string, for performing any kind of string functionality, string operations, I require this library. And JSON, JavaScript object notation. So it is a dictionary. So all the data is stored in the form of key value pairs. That is, whatever transactions are happening, I am storing in the form of a JSON object. It is stored in a dictionary form. And binary ASCII. So ASCII value is being converted into a binary form. And Numpy, numerical Python. So whatever mathematical operations I want to do, I go for Numpy. That is numerical Python. And then Pandas. What is the use of Pandas? For doing any kind of data manipulation operation, I require Pandas. And Pyplot, it is a procedural interface. And logging. So in order to keep track of a log, that is all the past transactions whatever is happening, in order to keep track of all the past transactions that are happening, I require a logging function, logging this module, and date time, on which date the transaction is happening. I require a date time library, and collections, in order to collectively store the transactions, I require a collections library. So after importing the required modules, what I need to do? So after I have imported the libraries, I need to sign the transactions. Whenever a transaction is going to happen, so I have to create an identity for the client class. So what is a client class is going to contain? It will contain the client name. So and then amount spent. So how much money he is going to spend and he is going to purchase something, and timestamp. So along with that, I need to sign the transaction. So in order to verify that the transaction has happened, so a client is making some purchase. So in case of a physical paper bill, what I am going to do? So whenever I am purchasing, I need to spend the money and you will be receiving the bill. So in digitally, what I am doing, whenever a transaction is happening, I need to sign the transaction, and then a hash will be created. So out of the data, input data, that is the variable length sequence, I am going to create a hash of the objects. So for creating the hash, I require the following libraries. That is, I require crypto. So for cryptographically storing, that is, the data should be stored in an encrypted form, and crypto.random, crypto.hash, I am importing SHA, that is secured hash algorithm. So as I told you, this is a kind of hashing technique. In order to convert the variable length string into a fixed length sequence, I want to import SHA, and then I am importing RSA. This is a kind of cryptographic public key algorithm. In order to verify the correctness of a public key, that is client, I require this algorithm, and this is a protocol from signature, crypto.signature, I am importing this. This is a protocol in order to verify the transactions that are happening. So signer, all the transactions are verified by using this protocol, that is cryptographically encrypted by using this protocol, and by using this key, the key is being generated. So for cryptographically storing the data, I need to import all these packages. That is, the data, the transactions that are being carried out, they are stored in a secured way. That is, cryptographically they are protected by various encryption techniques, and they are stored in a secured way. So it generates both private keys and public keys. For that I am using an algorithm called RSA algorithm. So the client class, they generate private keys and public keys. So how I am generating? Using this algorithm, there is a function called generate function. So how many characters it is going to take? Using random, I am going to generate a private key, and then I am creating a public key. So private key, so whenever I want to store the records in some external storage, I need to have a private key. So I need to have a ASCII representation of whatever values, transactions that are happening. So in order to convert to ASCII form, so I need to have ASCII value. So in order to convert to machine readable form, that is ASCII form. So whatever transactions that are carried out, everything is converted into an ASCII form. So in order to keep the records securely, I need a private key. And what is the use of public key? In order to verify the client's identity. So the public key, it is used as client's identity. What is the use of identity? It returns the hexadecimal representation of a public key. So whenever I have a key, so using public key, what is the use of public key? It is going to identify a client. So what I am doing, so whatever key it is generating, it is being converted into an hexadecimal form, hexadecimal representation. Sorry, it is being converted into an hexadecimal representation. So this is distinguished encoding rules. So using this format, I am converting into a hexadecimal form. And then while decoding, I have a decode function. I am giving the ASCII key and it will be decoded. So whenever I am encoding, I am using this encoding rules and I am encoding the key, and it is converted into a hexadecimal form. And using this function, this library, as I told you, the sender's identity, it will be converted into a binary, from ASCII to binary to ASCII form. And then while decoding, I have to provide the ASCII key. That is, the using the key, it will be decrypted and I can return the identity of the client. So at property annotation, so whenever I want to define the identity, so whenever I am having a client, in order to get the client's identity, I have a at property annotation. So using this, it will identify the clients. So it is unique to each client and they cannot be publicly available. So anyone, they can send virtual currency and they will be added to the blockchain. So this is how a blockchain works. So this is a class used for creating this. This is a user defined function. Yesterday I discussed with you in Python about user defined function. How it is defined using def keyword, the name of the function, and self, it is an instance of the class. The class variables, it is denoted by self. So whatever key I am giving, so it is encoded by using the encoding rules, and it is converted into a hexadecimal form. It is going to return me the identity of the client. So this is one simple client class. So what I am doing, so how I am creating a class in blockchain, class keyword, the name of the class, that is the client class, and using def I am creating an initialization block. Self, this is an instance of class, so I am creating a initialization block, that is init, using crypto.random.new. So it is used for reading the client. So whichever client he is coming, so some random number. So using cryptographic techniques, using this library, I am reading the client. It is stored in the variable called random, and then I am generating a private key, so that the records will be stored in the past transaction of records. It will be stored in a secure way, and then I am using public key. In order to verify the identity of the client, I am using a public key. And then using this protocol, I am creating, that is I have to encrypt the transactions, the signer. So in order to verify the signer, so I am having this protocol using this. So whatever private key it comes in, so I am going to be, it's going to be placed in the variable called self signer. So these are all the different things that are present whenever I have a client class. These are all the various things that are present in the client class. And then I am having a property variable. So I am going to identify there is a function called identity function. So using this I am going to verify the client, identity of the client. Next I am creating an instance of the client class, and whenever I am going to call this identity, it will be printed at the output. So with this I am stopping today. So tomorrow I will be continuing with this. So I will run this in Jupyter, and I will show you how the client class is being developed and what are all the remaining transactions that are being carried out. So till this part, any doubts you can ask me. Any doubts in any of the topics I discussed today? Tomorrow I will be showing this in Jupyter. Any doubts in any of the topics I discussed today? Any doubts? So what do you mean by a blockchain? And what are all the various components that are involved in a blockchain? And what do you mean by a hashing function? What is a Bitcoin? Everything is clear. Remaining things I will discuss with you tomorrow. So tomorrow I will be just showing a demo in Jupyter, what is going to happen, and then I will discuss with you about the remaining things. So what are all the other components that are involved in a blockchain? Client class, transaction class, everything I will discuss with you tomorrow. Any doubts? No doubts? Alright, we will meet tomorrow. Bitcoin, Satish Kumar. So as I told you, it is a digital currency. So whatever transactions we are carried out, instead of physical paper money, we are using a digital cash. It is called as a Bitcoin, cryptocurrency. That is using cryptographic techniques, the transactions are being stored in a secured way. For that we are employing blockchain. So the entire, what are all the transactions that are happening, it is stored in the form of blockchains. So it protected using various cryptographic techniques. And Bitcoin, it is nothing but a cryptographic currency, that is a digital currency. Instead of physical cash, it is a digital currency. Clear? Clear? What do you mean by digital currency? Bitcoin, someone asked me. What is this name? Satish Kumar, is that clear for you? Hash. So hash value, as as I told you, right, I am employing an algorithm called secure hash algorithm. Using that algorithm, so the variable length string, whatever input data comes in, it will be converted into a fixed length sequence. For that, I am using an hashing algorithm. The algorithm will be employed, and using that, it is the hash value is generated. Satish, is that clear? Any more doubts? All those things I will be discussing later, Sabri. How the exchange rate is being calculated, everything I will be discussing with you later. Bitcoins are secured. Yeah, what you are asking, Sabrish? Bitcoins are secured. They are being used. We are asking, right? Bitcoins, they are used for storing. It is a digital currency. So whatever transactions that are happening, it is being stored in a secured way. Yes, anyone can create, Murugesan, virtual currency. Yeah, there is a formula for calculating the exchange rate. So all those things, I am not going deeper into the subject. My subject is blockchain using Python. So I'll just be discussing what are the basic blockchain concepts, and then how we are going to develop various classes using blockchain. Yes, bitcoins are used in India, Santosh. Any more doubts? Alright, we will meet tomorrow.